So, it's that time of year again when people start thinking about what resolutions, New Year's resolutions, they want to make their life better. Ironically enough, most people give up on their New Year's resolutions pretty quickly. And I haven't even heard people talking about making them in the last few years. I mean, considering what we all been going through, I can see why. But considering we are starting a new year, I thought, let's talk about New Year's resolutions, how to make them effective, and this really interesting Swedish research study I found regarding New Year's resolutions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf. Okay. So I also thought something else I could do with this topic was maybe share with you a little bit more about how I find research studies and how I judge whether or not they're really ones I want to, use and discuss because I think they have merit and value and have been done well. And one of the key factors I remember in my university classes, my professors always going off about was if the N or participant number in a research study is below 20, throw it out the door. You cannot get good results from a research study if there was less than 20 participants in it. There needs to be at least 20, and that is just a minimum. So this research study, they come out right at the beginning and tell you that they had over 1,000 participants, and this was people who signed up in Sweden to be a part of this research study. They volunteered and they were put into 3 different groups. The first group was just asked to make resolutions, and then they would be checked up with, people would check in with them a couple times a year to see if they thought they were completing their resolutions. The second group was told to try to come up with resolutions that would be adding a positive thing instead of getting rid of a negative thing in their life. So not an avoidance goal, but an approach or oriented goal. So something they wanted to become or improve on. And also to find a support system, find a buddy, someone to remind them and encourage them to work on their goal. The third group was told to do all of that, but then they were given more information on how to set goals and different things like that, and they were given a lot more follow-up with everything. And as I was reading through this, I was like, this is pretty interesting, because some of the factors that they were told to consider was being very specific, that it was measurable, achievable, realistic, relevant, and time framed. And those are just really good tips in general for goal setting, and not even New Year's resolution, but goal setting. So that's what they said in this research study. And I was thinking about, well, okay, most people, when they set a New Year's resolution, if you set them like I have in the past, it's like, I want to stop doing X thing that I think is bad for me. Like, I'm going to stop staying up late. Well, that's, and I'm going to do it right away from the first day. I'm going to just go to bed on time every day. Okay, well, maybe that's not realistic, because what are we doing on New Year's Eve is staying up late. And then the very next day you sleep in, so your whole sleep schedule is thrown off, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure pretty darn quick. Or I'm not going to party as much, or I'm going, sometimes our goals are when we look at I want to be perfect at this right away from the beginning, January 1st, no issues. That can get discouraging because we are not going to be perfect at it right away. And that's the difference between an approach-oriented and an avoidance-oriented goal. An approach-oriented goal is, hey, I want to become this by the end of the year. Whereas most of the time when I think of a New Year's resolution, I think of what they were warning people to avoid, which is an avoidance goal. I want to stop doing this and never do it again. Well, we're not always going to be able to just quit something cold turkey and never do it again. It's best if we actually replace bad habits with good habits. So cultivating a good habit so we have less time for bad habits, or cultivating a good habit that can negate a bad habit, is far more effective. At least I've always thought so. And so when I found this research study, I found it really interesting, because the whole concept for me is, if you've ever read A Secret Garden, I love A Secret Garden, and there's a concept in The Secret Garden that wherever you plant a rose, a thistle cannot grow. And the rose are good habits and good thoughts and good things in our lives, and the thistles are the negative ones. So if we're planting roses in our lives, if we're intentionally doing positive things, there's going to be less room for those negative things in our lives. And actually, I think that might even be a line from one of the movie adaptations of Secret Garden, come to think of it. I'm not sure it's actually in the book, but I've always associated it with the book. And I just love that book. And I've been, reading it to kids and stuff. My kids have recently discovered it. Anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit, because I want to talk about some of the goals I've had this last year. So anyway, this research study, part of the reason why I like this research study is they were really straightforward about their limitations, especially when they were talking about the results. Because it was not a random selection of people, they did see that most people, nearly everyone, even in the control group that didn't get much guidance, did follow through on some extent to the resolutions. And this was probably because it was self-reported, it was self-sign up, it wasn't random, and they knew someone was going to follow up with them because they were part of a study, and so they had this, extra level of commitment that they may not have otherwise. So that can all factor into the results that I'm going to share with you. However, regardless of any of that, they still found some really interesting things, and I really wanted to cover those. So, in their results, they identified that individuals with approach-oriented goals saw a considerable, higher level of success compared to those who had avoidance-oriented goals. And again, I would like to think that this is partly due to the fact that it's the whole rose and thistle thing. You're trying to do something positive. But they also noticed that being given these parameters, these guidelines on being specific and measurable and realistic, relevant, time-framed, making them smaller goals. I know a lot of people will think about this and they'll be like, I want to achieve these huge, grand, awesome things. How are these little goals going to help me? It's by little steps, small, simple things that we're able to accomplish great things. And so it's through these small goals that we're able to accomplish bigger goals. And I kind of want to share that with you, how I saw that a little bit more in my life this year. I have some really wonderful friends and mentors who are also other military wives, and they were talking about their goals for reading. And I really hadn't set a lot of goals for this year at the beginning of the year. And I started to think about what I wanted to do differently, how I wanted to approach my life, what I wanted to achieve and accomplish. My kids are getting older. They're more and more independent, and I have more time to do things that I want to do. I don't have a ton of free time, but I've got some. And what did I want to accomplish? What did I want to become? What did I want to achieve? And one of my friends just started pounding out books. She was reading books like crazy. I think she read 9 books in January, and she's read a ton, and she just kept it up all year. And I'm like, you know what? I want to read more. And so it wasn't like I'm going to read X amount of books by X day, or I'm going to read a book every week. That wasn't it. I'm like, I want to be more well read. What are a few books that I have been wanting to read for a long time that I have not read? And I made a list. And I know for me, sitting down and reading a book is not always possible. So I gave myself the leeway to do audiobooks too. Some reading, sitting down and reading, and some audiobooks. And it really made a difference. I actually was able to, I have not finished War and Peace, but I actually started War and Peace, and I got almost halfway through it before I had to take a break. War and Peace is really intense, people. Or at least maybe it is for me and not for you. I don't know. But anyway, I will finish War and Peace. I had to give it a break. I was able to pick up some books that my mother had recommended to me for years that I had not even, thought about. And I just kind of got on a roll to the point where I was having so much fun with all of these new books that I started putting it out on Facebook to some of my friends who are really good readers. Hey, what are some books that you recommend? And started picking up books that they recommended. And I discovered Evelina. Oh my goodness. As a Jane Austen's fan, I had no idea that Jane Austen's favorite book was still available, and that's Evelina. Evelina was one of her favorite books. And it is really, really well written. I love that book. There are some really awkward moments. It's a really funny book. There's a lot to it. I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you want to know more about my favorite books from this last year of reading, let me know in the comments and I will share them with you. But there was just a lot of really good books that I encountered this year by setting that goal. Now, did I read a book every week? No. Were there months that I didn't pick up a book at all? Yes. But did I read more this year than I have in previous years? Yes. And that was the goal. The goal was to do a little bit more. And I did it. Was I, constantly reading? Nope. There was times where I was just too busy. But I was reading more in general, and I really feel grateful for that goal. The other goal that I set was this podcast. I decided a couple months into the year that I really felt like I needed to share all of these things that I was learning from all of these other wonderful military spouses about navigating the military life and all of these things that I had learned in college from my wonderful professors about marriage and family and how they've applied to my, military life. And so I set the goal to record one podcast every single week, regardless, this whole year. And there have been times, like today, where I didn't think I was going to meet that goal and that I was going to drop the podcast was going to be published on Wednesday every week. And I've made that goal. Now, has it been first thing Wednesday morning? No. Sometimes it's been Wednesday evening. There was one time I literally was starting to get sick. I frantically recorded the podcast, dropped the podcast, and then got massively ill. Or like this week where I have had a migraine for 2 days and I wasn't able to record yesterday. So I'm recording Wednesday morning. I'm getting this out to you on a Wednesday because the migraine has finally started to lift and I can think again. So I'm glad I had this whole topic prepared ahead of time because I wouldn't be ready if I hadn't. And so it's taken some planning and preparation and everything to make sure I've had a topic to discuss with you every week, that I've done my, scripting it out and everything. But those are ways that I have worked on those goals. It's an approach-oriented goal. I had a time frame and it was realistic. I was not going to be able to. There was at one point this year where I tried to do a bonus episode and it nearly killed me because it was just way too much work. And I realized, okay, one episode a week is really all I can do right now. And so that's what I'm going to do. It's a realistic goal. I cannot do more than that, but I want to do that at least consistently for you. And it's measurable. I can tell. Have I done it or have I not? It's a binary set. There's a yes or no factor to it. So those are some of the goals that I have been doing this year. And as I'm looking towards next year and my next year's goals, I was thinking about one of the podcast episodes I had done earlier in the year about self-care. And I had broken it down into 4 categories, more or less: physical, spiritual, intellectual, and social. And I wanted to address maybe setting goals in those categories for this coming year and talking about what we could do. What are some small, simple things that we can do that will have a big impact on our lives? So again, with the concept of approach-oriented goals, things that we want to work towards doing, I'm going to start with physical. So with me, I have the goal to drink minimum 64 ounces of fluids every single day. And when I first started this goal this last year, I was not very consistent or very good at it. And over the year, I have come up with different ways of measuring and tracking that goal. Originally, I had I just blanked on what those are called. Bullet journals, where you could like draw the pictures and all of that. And that was fine, but it was one separate thing, so it wasn't working. So then I got a planner that had it in the planner, so I could just keep it in my planner and track it. Well, I am hit or miss on using my planner. So my husband had got me an updated watch for Christmas and our anniversary, and it allows me to track my fluid intake throughout the day by a touch of a button. So I can track it much better now. And I'm really grateful for that. But the other thing I found was having like a water bottle, or I like herb tea, so a mug that was 32 ounces. So I knew that I only had to drink it twice and I was done. Like I'd met my goal. So I have a large 32-ounce water bottle and I have a 32-ounce mug. And so I'll make myself like a giant thing of herb tea and drink that all morning. And then I'll carry my water bottle with me. And I know that if I fill those things twice, I've met my goal. So having it so it's measurable and it's easy. And there's lots of different ways of measuring your fluid intake. But anyway, that was one I had thought of. The other one was maybe 8 hours of sleep. This one I'm really, really bad at. This was actually one of my goals this year that I failed at. Probably because I looked at it more of an avoidance goal instead of an approaching goal. I will admit I am getting closer to 8 hours of sleep now than I was at the beginning of the year. So in that aspect, I am doing well. I am improving. However, not quite reached it. So working on that one still. Another one could be like steps. A lot of the smartwatches people are getting will count as pedometers. So maybe setting a goal of 2 miles a day, or, I know ideally everyone should be doing 10,000 steps, but that can be a little tricky depending on your job. So setting something that is realistic that you're going to hit, or maybe taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Just simple little things like I'm going to take the stairs once a day at work instead of the elevator, and working on that. So maybe it'll, something small. And so those are some ideas for physical. Again, make it your own. Figure out what you need. Everyone's lives are different. Maybe you're trying to drink less alcohol or eat less junk food. Instead of thinking about eating less junk food, think about, I'm going to try new healthy recipes. And so you're focusing more on an approach thing. I want to try new recipes. And that way you can try new healthy recipes. And that will take away from the time you have to eat junk food, theoretically. Or I'm going to drink more water. Well, if you're drinking a lot of water, you probably won't be drinking, maybe as much of other stuff. So, just switching the way you think about it. So the next one is spiritual. And spiritual can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I'm a religious person. I have friends who are not religious people. But regardless of how you approach your spirituality, there are a lot of different ways you can focus this. And this can also be your mental health too. So for me, I have a goal where I am trying to pray out loud once a day by myself. And that is something that I am working on and I'm still improving on. But I realize that when I pray out loud, my thoughts are more organized and I'm less likely to have my mind wander or to fall asleep while praying, which does happen in my life because I'm human and I'm, juggling a whole bunch of stuff and, life is busy. So, but I have other friends who they like to meditate or have quiet time. And having those peaceful moments in your life, taking that downtime, that quiet time, that mental health time is important. So maybe you could be like, you know what? I am going to shut off all technology for 30 minutes every day. Now that's an avoidance goal, so it might be a little bit harder to accomplish. But here's a way that you can make it an approach goal. I am going to schedule 30 minutes of personal time every day where I meditate or I, take a nap or, just sit outside and look at the trees. Make it instead of I'm going to avoid technology, set it as I'm going to go for a walk or I'm going to go sit out on the front porch and watch the wind blow in the trees or something like that. So make it things that you can look forward to. So it's more of an approach oriented goal instead of an avoidance one. Then with intellectual, we talked a bit about my reading book ones. I'm also a documentary nerd, as you have all learned with my little rabbit hole conversations about how I get lost down the rabbit hole of interesting documentaries that, well, yeah. So maybe it's like, you know what? I am going to find some documentaries that I think are interesting and I'm going to watch them. You know what? The first part of your goal can be researching your goal. That really can be the first step to a goal. Instead of saying, I'm going to watch a documentary every week and then sit down at the end of the week and be like, I don't know what I'm going to watch. Maybe say your goal is be like, by the end of January, I want to have found 12 documentaries that I think sound interesting and put them in a playlist. That way, whenever you sit down and you're like, I'm going to watch a documentary, you have something to watch. Same thing with maybe reading more books, or this is my thing lately. I am trying to get back up to speed in my career field so that I can take a certification test so that I can start working in my field again now that my kids are all in school. And so I have been trying to go through my old textbooks, get up to date on research studies and things that are going on. But instead of overwhelming myself with that, I've actually tied it into this podcast, which is called bundling. If you all remember those techniques I talked about earlier, I'm bundling. So I have been covering research and sharing it with you on this podcast that is also helping me to get back up to date on my career field. So using one goal to help me meet another goal. Another one you could do is maybe writing in a journal. Maybe a journal that could be intellectual and spiritual in some ways. Journaling can really help with mental health. So maybe you're like, you know what? I want to write in a journal. So first step, I'm going to buy a journal. Okay. Second step, I am going to take notes on my phone during the day of interesting things I have done. Or I am going to, just because we've got our phones with us at all times. So you can make a little notepad app on your phone and just start taking notes of interesting things that happen to you. And then whenever you have time, maybe once a week, sit down and write about those things in your journal. Or maybe you want it to be more of a reflective sort of thing and a meta journal where you kind of think about your life instead of recording your life verbatim. And so you can research as your second step journaling prompts, so you can meta journal. Either way, there's lots of different ways you can approach that one. So those are just some ideas for intellectual ones. This episode is getting super long, so I'm going to try to, finish up. Socially, I was trying to think of really simple social goals. And socialization has been largely moved to virtual due to the life in the universe and everything. And as a result, our human contact has been, we have been regaining our human contact. So maybe your goal could be, I'm going to say hi to my neighbors whenever I see them outside. Or I'm going to learn the names of the neighbor kids. There are so many kids in our neighborhood, and I am still trying to learn all their names. So that is something that I'm working on. Or, you know what? Once a month, we're going to have someone over for dinner. I'm going to have girls' nights. Oh my goodness. Having girls' nights again has been so amazing. I definitely needed that for my mental health. Yeah. Just different things. I'm going to have a girls' night. You know what? If that's your goal, that you're going to have at least 2 girls' nights this year, and that is a realistic goal for you, then do it. Maybe it's 2 more than you had last year, and that's fine. I have wanted to be part of a book club. I don't have time for a book club. That's part of why I've done my independent reading goals. But maybe you're going to start a book club, and you can, do it however you want. But anyway, those are just some ideas I had about setting goals and New Year's resolutions. But I'm going to go back to what they found in the research study that were really helpful. Again, approach-oriented goals and being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, relevant, and time-framed. Small and simple things, people. Small and simple things. So let's, set some small and simple goals for yourself. I'm going to try setting them one in each of these categories. If that seems too daunting for you, maybe pick one category or one goal. And then once you achieve that goal, renew that goal or start a new goal. You'll start to gain momentum. Honestly, with the reading goal, the more I started reading, the more I wanted to read and the more I found to read. Same with the podcast. Once I got started, getting started was the hardest part. Once I got started, the ideas of what to share just kept coming. And I felt really blessed that has happened. I was so afraid that I would run out of material to share with all of you and that I really just didn't have anything to contribute. And I'm glad I didn't let that fear stop me from starting this and, doing something. Anyway, all of that said, I am so excited to find out what this new year is going to bring for me and for all of you guys. And if there are any topics in particular that you are wanting me to cover, just let me know. I would love input. I have gotten some input throughout this year and done those episodes, and they've been really enjoyable. And so, if you want to share ideas with me, feel free. I hope you have a wonderful new year. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. And you have been listening to Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife.